Cha-cha.
Sales contest. As you all know, first prize is a Cadillac Eldorado. Anybody want to see second prize? Second prize is a set of steak knives. Third prize is your...
Really surprised, and I was curious to hear what your argument was going to be, but then when you're like, I agree with you, I'm like, well, we're not fighting now. That's why I got to gin up some fight between you and Bart Bouchot. I had no idea, by the way, how I'm worried about the two of you if you're ever in a room again. Chuck Joyner is here with us, everybody. Chuck Joyner, he is, of course, the host of MacVoices, online at MacVoices.com, and you can follow Chuck on Twitter at Chuck Joyner, Joiner, at Chuck Joyner on Twitter. Let me really quickly, this fight between Chuck and Bart is mostly made up by me.
Mostly. Oh, good. Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Again. Yeah, happy to be here. Doubly so next time I get you and Bart on at the same time. Right.
Were you a Boy Scout, Ken?
No. Are you kidding me? I was a Cub Scout. It was a pack of fun. And then I tried to go into Boy Scouts, and I didn't have much in the way of a male role model when I was a kid, Chuck. And so I tried doing a couple of things that the Boy Scout manual said you should be able to do. But there was no guy around who could like tell me how to do the things. And then my mom, love my mom to pieces, but kind of useless as far as starting a fire with a flint and steel. And so no, I was not a Boy Scout. Why do you ask?
Because you're really good at stoking the fire once it gets started.
Oh, thank you very much. Oh, see, yeah, I'm pretty good at. Yeah, sure. Hellion might have been a better. Were you a Hellion as a child? You might have said, and then I'd say, me, Chuck? No, never. Right. All right. So here was a topic that I wanted to bring up with you today. And I think the reason I wanted to bring it up with you is just because it's one of those things that sort of like, gets in my craw. I try not to use that term because I don't even know where the craw is. So I'm not sure that's where it is. But there's a thing that just annoys me from time to time. You're not hearing it as much anymore. And maybe you're not hearing it as much anymore on the success of Ted Lasso and Schmigadoon. And the fact that Apple is leaning hard into the fact that when they advertise Apple TV Plus now, they advertise the fact that they're all originals. But for a very long time, what you heard was Apple needs to buy a studio if it's going to beat Netflix or Disney Plus. The assumption, I guess, being that the only way to succeed is to be number one, to either be Netflix or be Disney Plus. The good people at Consumer Intelligence Research Partners, or CIRP, came out last week and said that Apple is largely absent from the smart speaker scene in the U.S. I believe it is, I think Amazon's got something like 66% of that market. Google's got 25%, according to CIRP. And Apple and Facebook are arguing over the last 9%, I think. With Apple, it looks like having about 3 times as much as Facebook has. But again, less than 10% of the market. Never mind the 25 that Google has or the 66 that Amazon has. So they're failing in those areas. Is that correct? Do we have to assume that the only way to win is to be the biggest, be the most? Or do we actually believe what Apple says when they say what we want to make is the best and we'll let the most worry about itself?
See, I agree with you on this. I love these people that give Apple all this advice. Meanwhile, they're running their pathetic little companies, and Apple is, in the trillions. Mm-hmm. Sorry to whoever I just offended, but that's the way I see it. But there's also this idea that we're going to look at everything alone, isolated, mm-hmm. and evaluate it on that basis. And so, okay, if the smart speaker market, if they have such a low percentage, if that supports their ecosystem with the S Lady, then, and that's what they primarily want to do with it, then great. It doesn't have to be have this huge market share. Mm-hmm. The Netflix studio thing, I think that's really interesting, especially in a world now where we're seeing digital production and all. I'm not even sure I honestly know what a studio means at this point. Is a studio a production company, or is a studio a physical, like, the back lot at Paramount? Mm-hmm. Is that what they're referring to? But I think it's, Apple Apple has become a player by doing things their way, and I'm sorry, thinking differently about the way they do things. And I think that instead we're right back to that. Well, this is the traditional wisdom about this industry, and if Apple doesn't do it, it's doomed.
Is Apple so big? What was it? I think it was when we heard a rumor that Apple was going to be buying Beats, that you had me on your show with Mark Fuccio, and I can't remember who else. But at the time, there was talk that Apple might one day start doing their own video stuff. And you put that question to everybody, like, does it seem like a good idea for Apple? And my response, and not like I'm some kind of prophet or anything, but my response was, Apple has so much money, sure, if they want to throw some of it at that to see what happens, why not? Why not let them do that? Go ahead 5 years, 6 years now. I mean, can Apple just... I try to make the car thing work in my head. For Apple. And it doesn't make any sense that Apple would get into cars, except they see that as a nascent market, apparently. And Apple's got more money than Croesus. I mean, is there any reason that Apple shouldn't get into anything that Apple thinks it wants to do? Because if we stand outside and look at it and go, well, I mean, they're never going to do anything in cars. I mean, see also, well, we don't even wear watches anymore. We quit wearing watches because we have the time on our phone. And then, you know, when Apple was getting into phones, half the people in the country were like, well, what does Apple even know about phones? This is ridiculous. They should stick to what they know. The iPod. I mean, are they now so big that they can throw money at anything? And it's like, well, it's fine. Because first of all, even if they're not the biggest, they'll be fine. But the other thing is, they may end up being the biggest. See also Apple Watch and, you know, depending on the year, iPhone as well.
Well, that's one of the few times that when someone says Apple has all this money that I don't cringe, because to me that's not the question. The question really becomes they have it, so they can do some experimentation that other people, companies can't. Just financially can't. They can afford to take a little bit of a flyer. But if they want to do it, then they have the ability to do it and do it their way. And at the risk of repeating myself about the studio part, what would be wrong if Apple says, you know, look, we want to put together a channel of what we perceive to be some of the greatest stories and the best content out there, best being however they decide the measurements are, and saying, okay, production houses, you know, around the world, this is what we're looking for. What do you got? And cherry picking the ones that, you know, suit their needs or their vision, and then putting it on Apple TV Plus and running with it, as opposed to saying, oh, we have to have the backlot at Paramount, and we have to hire the director and the producer and the writers, and, you know, have all the camera gear and have all the editing suites, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know, it's a different business model, and it's one that, I mean, I don't know, Ken, does Netflix have a studio?
Oh yeah,
does Amazon?
They have Netflix has a studio in Arizona. I just found out recently. I think either Arizona or New Mexico. I was surprised to find, and I don't know about Amazon honestly, but yeah, Netflix has it like a lot. Not in California, but although they might own production facilities in California as well. I'll tell you honestly, as I'm sitting here talking to you about this, the one thing that leaps to mind was actually a question and answer on the last earnings call. A couple of weeks ago now, maybe even a couple of weeks, a little over 2 weeks ago as people hear this. One of the analysts said, so you're making some chips, you're buying other chips. What makes you decide, you could make something as opposed to buying something? And basically what Tim Cook said was, if we can make something better, we'll make it. And if we can't, we'll buy it. I guess the best way to say it is they're not going to reinvent the wheel. They're going to invent something that's not the wheel. Might do a lot of the same stuff, but it's going to be so much better. And if they can look at something and go, well, we can't do anything, decidedly or markedly different or markedly better. Kind of like the whole thing with the television. For years, people thought they were going to make a full-on television. Again, not to make myself sound like a prophet, but I never understood why they would make a television because, as you pointed out, you can walk into Best Buy, you can walk into Target, you can walk into Walmart, Costco, wherever, and there's a whole wall of TVs, and you can buy them in a range of prices. I mean, at the end of the day, they're still going to show the Golden Girls. What's Apple going to bring to that they're not, that you can't already get at a wall of televisions in 5 different stores and 10 different malls in 50 different cities across the country? Maybe it's just them looking at it going, we can do that better. And then everybody stands around and goes, well, I don't understand what they're doing, until the day you understand what they're doing.
I love the question, but I love the answer more, because it makes perfect sense. In any business, so if you want to break it down, you could go a lot of different ways. That, well, if we can make it better, well, if we can make it cheaper, if we can make it faster, if we can make it in quantity that maybe we can't buy it in. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's a good basic answer. I mean, okay, here's another one of my analogies, but I don't know about you. I can grill a pretty mean hot dog, mm-hmm. but I don't think you'd want to try my Chateaubriand. So, if I can go and buy Chateaubriand and not invest the time and effort in learning how to do it because I don't want it that often, then I'm going to go and do it. But if I can grill a hot dog for as many times as I want, yeah, great.
Yeah.
So it's simple, but it works.
No, I made butter once, and it's neat to know that I can make butter. I will continue to buy the butter that I need because, just because I can doesn't mean I should.